Oh man, it's happening. Oh man, oh man, oh man, my judgment day, my doomsday, it's happening. Oh my goodness, I thought this day would never come. It's happening. It's happening. Oh my, it's happening. I'm freaking out. It's happening. My judgment day is happening. This is what you wanted. So here you go. The day has come. The day has come. The day has come. The day I review these movies has come. Hey, what's up you guys? Film fan 0599 here again. And due to popular request, I am not kidding when I say this. This was the most demanded franchise review I have ever had in the almost 4 years of doing this channel. I have never had a franchise requested to review this badly, because everybody knows how much I despise this franchise, and everybody wanted me to let out my rage on these movies. And it's finally happening. Because today, we're going to be talking about and reviewing Twilight. That's right, over the next 5 days, ladies and gentlemen, you're going to see me lose my mind over all 5 of these pieces of garbage movies. And we're going to start off with the one that started all almost 10 years ago. So, okay, so Twilight basically stars Robert Pattinson and Kristen Stewart, and what this movie is about, it's the most basic plot ever. So what the movie is basically about, it's about this girl named Bella, and she moves to a new town, and there's this guy named Edward, and what she finds out about him? He's a vampire. Ooh, he's a vampire. And what then on from there is a terrible romance, the worst romance in cinematic history, one of the worst written movies ever. Okay. Back when this came out in 2008, I had no clue about, how popular these books were. I was just like, this looks like a really generic romance movie, just with vampires. And I didn't have much expectations when it first came out. I really just was like, alright, whatever. I watched it. I hated it. And rewatching it again, because I have to rewatch these in order to give an accurate review, nothing's changed. Nothing has changed. This is still probably the worst romance movie of all time, along with the others. Of course, I'll get more into the others once we talk about them, but this first movie, wow. This has to be the worst start to a franchise I have ever witnessed in my entire life. Literally, this is awful. This is beyond awful. This is beyond terrible. This is the Batman and Robin of romance movies. It's that bad. It is awful, this movie. But what is awful, you may ask? What is so terrible about this movie, you may ask yourself? Well, I'm about to tell you, because there's a lot. There is a lot that is awful about this movie. And this entire franchise as a whole. So let's start off. Let's start off with the first negative that I have with this movie. The lifeless acting. The terrible lifeless acting in this movie. This is literally everybody in the movie. Hi. You shouldn't be with me. I shouldn't be with you. Literally, that's all it is. It's so shallow, the acting in this movie. Robert Pattinson, he is one of the, like, most uninteresting, both Edward and Bella are two of the most uninteresting protagonists I've ever seen on film. They're so uninteresting. They're not interesting characters. Seriously, they're two uninteresting characters. And besides with the acting, okay, Robert Pattinson, he's not convincing at all. He is terrible. He is so wooden. He's so bland. He's terrible in this movie. Like, seriously, he's one of the worst leads I've ever seen in a film with this movie and just the franchise as a whole. He's awful in this movie. And the dudes are good. Here's the thing about this. The people in this movie, are actually good actors. I've seen it. Robert Pattinson, if you've ever seen the movie The Rover, he's great in that. He gives a really great performance. Kristen Stewart, she's a pretty good actress. I've seen her do some good in other movies. And they all regret these movies. That's the thing. They all know these movies are bad. Robert Pattinson has admitted many, many times that he regrets doing these movies. So does Kristen Stewart. She so regrets doing these movies. And they're both so terrible in this movie. They're awful. The people that play the main villains in this movie, they're some of the worst villains I've ever seen on screen. The dude that plays James, he's like so over dramatic. He really is, and overacts so much. Holy moly. Seriously, everyone else, all the other people that play in the Collin family or whatever they're called, they're terrible. They're awful. They give lifeless performances. Everyone's just a stack of, cyborgs. They're robots in this movie. That's how they act in this movie. Seriously, the acting is so shallow and terrible in this film. And non-convincing whatsoever. Seriously. And then the biggest problem with this movie is what the main selling point is with this movie and this franchise. The romance. Like I said, this is the worst romance I've ever witnessed in film history. Now, everybody knows the romance genre is my least favorite genre of film. I'm not a fan of it. I never have been, and I probably never will. It's something I'm not a fan of. It's the most cliche genre out of any genre of film. It really is. But I'm not saying I don't like any romance film, because there are some really good ones. For examples, Love Actually, The Fault in Our Stars. Those are two prime examples in my eyes. But it's just so poorly written, this romance. And you do not, and I mean do not, I will repeat again, do not buy these two as, like a couple. You don't. At all. You seriously don't. You do not buy into this. It's so forced. I know it's based on a book and whatever, but it just feels so forced in this movie. It's they have to get together. You know what I mean? It really seems like that. It's just so terrible. And seriously, it is terrible, this romance. This romance is awful. It's so poorly written. The dialogue that these characters have. Wow. I can't even believe I'm about to say this. Adam Sandler has written better stuff than this. I mean, seriously, this is, terrible. This is, whoever, wrote the screenplay for this movie, Stephanie Meyer, who is the one that wrote the books, okay, this was the best writing you could come up with for your books, and now it's being translated into film, and it's even worse. It's even worse. I can't even imagine just watching the movies. I can't even imagine reading the books, okay? I'm not that much of a reader, but I can't even imagine reading the books. And imagine how terrible the writing is in that as well. I seriously can't imagine it. The writing's awful here. Okay? Especially when it comes to the romance. Because it's so painfully awful. Like, seriously, it really is. And like I said, you do not buy these two as a couple, as a... Listen, Anastasia Steele and Christian Grey are bad. Anakin and Padme, they're bad as well. But nothing, and I mean absolutely nothing, is worse than Edward and Bella. Nothing is worse. Nothing is worse than this. This is, without question, like I said, the worst on-screen romance I've ever laid my eyes on. There's nothing convincing about this whatsoever. Nothing convincing. You don't buy these two as a couple. They're so uninteresting as characters as it is. And having to force them to be in love with each other, it's so forced and contrived. Like I said, I get it, it's based on a book. But in this movie, it feels so like forced and contrived that they have to be together. Like, seriously. And it's just so painfully awful. And I mean painfully awful. I took 4 breaks watching this movie. I don't know how I got through it. Like, seriously, I do not know how I got through having to rewatch this again. And I have 4 more to go, people. I have 4 more to go. Back to the writing, okay? Like I said, the writing it's terrible. It's awful. It's one of the worst screenplays I've ever witnessed to a film. Like, seriously, the writing in this movie is so atrociously awful. Like, really, the dialogue, not just for the 2 leads, some of the other characters, like, have these, like, really terrible lines, especially the villains. Like, when James, like, says, like, this line, like, you bought a snack. Like, it's so terrible how he says it. It's like, the dialogue that these characters are given are so awful. Like I said, whoever wrote the screenplay for this movie really needs to get, like, kicked in the head or something, and was like, it should, like, be said, like, this is not good writing. Like, seriously, this is awful. The directing with this movie, that's bad too. That's awful as well. It's not well shot. The cinematography isn't even that great with the movie, really. Just the directing really isn't that great with this film. And then, once you get to the finale, my god, the finale is just so bombarded and so over the top that you're just like, wow. It's so terrible. It really is. It's just, that finale is, like I said, it's so bombarded and so over the top that it's like, what? Like it's just like, you're just sitting there like, what is the, and then how it's filmed, it's so terribly filmed that, like, final action scene that happens in the movie, can't spoil it, but I don't really, there's a final action scene in it, and it's really terribly, very, very terribly filmed. Like, it's so poorly filmed. For the love of sweet goodness, is it poorly filmed? It's so bad. And they, like, do these, like, jumping, like, whenever they, like, jump at each other, it's just, it's so bad. It really is. And the pacing. Okay, let me ask you this. When a movie has 2 boring leads, a terrible, awful romance, very uninteresting characters, let me explain that, some terrible writing, some not good directing, do you expect the movie to be interesting? No! It's boring! It really is. It's boring. This movie is 2 hours and 1 minute. Let me remind you that. 2 hours and 1 minute. And nothing happens. Nothing happens. Nothing happens. Literally, it's just 2 hours and 1 minute of just nothing. Of just nothing. Okay? It's nothing. It's 2 hours and 1 minute of nothing. Okay? Of nothing. Of nothing. Literally, nothing happens in this movie. It's nothing more than just... It's nothing more than just terrible characters, terrible romance, a terrible writing. It's nothing more than that. And this movie is such a slap in the face to vampires. It really is. Like, vampires are supposed to be these, like, scary, like, you know, horror creatures, and then this comes along and makes them into sparkly, you know, whiny teens. Like, that's what they make them. Oh my goodness, like, seriously. Twilight, the first one, is a terrible movie. No, it's beyond terrible. No, it's atrociously awful. It's so atrocious. It's one of the worst movies ever created, along with the others. And I'll get more into what doesn't work, because these movies get worse as they go along. No, these movies get worse as they go along. God help me. Seriously. God help me. God have mercy on my soul. I am dead serious. I don't know how I'm going to survive through this. I barely survived through this one. I don't know how I'm going to... Because, like I said, it gets worse with almost every movie. So, obviously, it gets an F. Okay? An F, 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 F. Okay? This movie's terrible. Okay? It's awful. It's an awful romance movie. It is the worst romance movie along with the others. It's so terrible. It's one of the worst romance movies. No, it's the worst. No, the worst romance movie ever. With the worst romance and the worst, probably, leads in cinematic history. So there you go. There's my review / rant on the first movie. If you've seen it, what do you think about it? Leave it in the comment section below. And I'm Film Fan 0599. And we'll see you all tomorrow, once again, for my review of New Moon. I don't know how I'm going to survive this! You want this. Let me just remind you, you want this!